argument is not with his supporters, it's with him.
When Bernie Sanders said she had bad judgment, she has really bad judgment.
It all comes down to this.
He wants to talk about what we've been doing the last 30 years. Bring it on.
The election of Hillary Clinton would lead to the destruction of our country.
Clinton, Trump, the final debate tomorrow. Live coverage starts at 4 p.m. Eastern on CNN.
I'm the author of Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited. Evaluating the mental health of a public figure requires an inordinate amount of research. Over the past 5 years, I have watched well over 600 hours of Donald Trump in various settings. I have read everything he has written and everything he was quoted as saying. I have no such in-depth acquaintance with other candidates like Hillary Clinton. By now I'm convinced that Trump is a malignant narcissist. This view is shared by dozens of mental health professionals who went on public record with their analysis of his mental infirmity. Trump is dangerous, antisocial, destructive, vindictive, sadistic, and hypervigilant. He is hypersensitive and a bit paranoid. Trump regards himself as omniscient. In other words, he knows it all. He's all-knowing. He is an authority on anything and everything, from aesthetics to ethics. Trump lacks intellectual curiosity simply because he knows everything. Why would he be curious, and what would he be curious about? He regards outside advice as both superfluous and injurious. Accepting advice implies that you are less than perfect, and Trump is perfect. Trump is likely to surround himself with timid yes-men and sycophantic acolytes. He is likely to generate an impregnable echo chamber rather than a council of wise men and women. Trump's grasp of nuanced reality is already very weak, but it is likely to deteriorate further to the point of paranoid psychosis. Faced with opposition, however tenuous, Trump is likely to react by scapegoating and by inciting street or state violence against targeted groups and individuals. Trump is the state, so his enemies, in other words, anyone who as much as voices doubt or disagrees with him, that's his enemies. His enemies, by definition, are enemies of the state because he is the state. Owing to his self-perceived innate superiority, Trump regards himself as above and transcending laws made by lesser mortals. Laws are meant to trap and ensnare giants like him, to drag him down to the pedestrian level of mediocrity. Trump plays by the rules only when and only if they accord with his predilections and especially his self-interest. Like all narcissists, Trump believes that he is universally loved, adored, and admired. He attributes this ostensible and utterly delusional blanket approbation to his effusive charm and his irresistibility. He is firmly convinced that he can motivate people to transgress against their own moral convictions and to break the law if necessary. How is he going to do that? By the sheer force of his monumental personality. Trump idealizes and then rapidly devalues people, collectives, and institutions. Trump is in sempiternal flux. He is inconstant in his judgments, inconstant in his opinions, views, and his fleeting attachments. Trump is intellectually lazy, so he is a firm adherent of shortcuts and of fake it till you make it. It is a dangerous approach, that led him to botch numerous business deals and to inflict untold damage and suffering on thousands of people. Trump is authoritarian in the worst sense of the word. In his disordered, chaotic mind, Trump believes that he is infallible, incapable of erring, incapable of making mistakes. He believes that he's omnipotent, all-powerful, can achieve anything if he just sets his mind to it. He believes that he's omniscient. He needs to learn nothing, as he is the fount of all true intuitive knowledge and wisdom. These tendencies to regard oneself as infallible, as omniscient and omnipotent, these tendencies preclude any proper team work, any orderly governance, any institutional capacity, any flow of authority and responsibility, any structure, to put it plainly. Trump is an artist. He is led by inconsistent and intermittent inspiration, not by reliable, old-fashioned perspiration. He is not a self-made man, as he likes to present himself. Trump is a self-conjured caricature of a self-made man. Trump is guided by his alleged inner divine wisdom. He is a malevolent guru and cult leader, not a politician or a statesman. Ironically, Trump's much-trumpeted grandiosity is fragile because it is based on delusional and fantastic assumptions of perfection and intellectual brilliance, and these assumptions are very hard to defend. Trump's relentless and compulsive pursuit of affirmation and adulation, of narcissistic supply, is his way of buttressing his grandiose fantasies, which otherwise are indefensible. Trump needs to constantly be idolized just to feel half human. Criticism and disagreement, however minor, however well-intentioned, are perceived by Trump as unmitigated threats to the precarious house of cards that is his personality. Consequently, Trump is sadistically vindictive, aiming not just to counter such countervailing opinions regarding his godlike status, but to deter and intimidate future critics and hopefully ruin them for good. Finally, aiming to disavow his own fragility and the indisputable fact that his public persona is nothing but a fabrication, Trump ostentatiously and volubly abhors and berates the weak, the meek, losers, haters, of which he's a prime example, the disabled, women, minorities, and anyone else who might remind him by their very existence of how far from perfect and brilliant he is. The public Trump is about hatred, resentment, rage, envy, and other negative emotions, because he is mercilessly driven by these very demons internally. Trump's quotidian existence is a Kafkaesque trial in which he stands accused of being a mere average, not too bright, mortal and individual. In this trial, Trump is constantly found wanting and guilty as charged. His entire life is a desperate, last-ditch attempt to prove wrong the prosecution in this never-ending courtroom drama, which is Donald Trump's soul.
Tom. I'd like to hear from both you and Mr. Trump your reaction to the possibility that the reform party candidate may not be allowed in presidential debates.
Well, I'll answer for myself first, and then I'll let Donald Trump answer certainly for himself. I think it's despicable. I think it's a clear case of them fearing there could be another Jesse Ventura, and that they're going to stop in any way they possibly can, because for those of you that are national and weren't here in Minnesota when I ran, at the point of the primary, I was only polling 10%, which means that if you went by their criteria, I would not have been allowed to debate and subsequently would have not won the election And it also shows great fear on their part in the fact that a candidate like me can be at 10% and can turn around in a mere 6 weeks and win. And it's obviously clear to me that they don't want that to happen again. And I think it's cheating the American public. I think, as I said, it's despicable on their part. And I would hope people would be as outraged about it as I am. The third, all other criteria and major party status is listed at 5%. 5% to be major party, 5% for federal funding and all that. Yet on debating, it's 15% now. And rest assured, if we came in with a 15%, they'd raise it to 20. It would be based upon whatever it takes to keep us out. Take a look at '92 when Ross Perot ran and got 19% of the vote. That's 1 out of every 5 people that voted for Ross Perot, and yet the next election he was cut out of it. And I think that it's unfair to put pollsters in that position. It's shirking the duty of what this committee is supposed to do. And now they're putting it onto the pollsters. Well, it's the pollsters that decide. Well, a poll can be skewered. I can go out and get you a poll on anything you want and probably get the results that I want, just in how I conduct it. And I think it's bad. It's terrible that lobbyists, professional lobbyists today are now deciding who will be allowed to debate for President of the United States. And it's obvious they don't want us in the Reform Party because they don't make money off us. They don't have influence with us. So typical to lobbying, they're being lobbied and they're now doing their lobbying. Pretty sad.
Well, I agree 100% with Jesse. It's disgraceful. It's amazing that they can get away with it. The Republicans and Democrats are the ones that, as you know, chose I guess you have 3 members of each, and they're the ones that chose. If you look at your lobbyists and everyone else, they're all Republicans or Democrats. And I'll add one additional thing. I watched the Republican debate last night, and I'll tell you what, if the right person was debating against whoever the winner of that group is, they'd have a major impact on the election, because that was not a very inspiring group of people that I was watching last night. So I think they're very concerned. I think they're extremely nervous about it. And I also think that probably the law will be changed in this case, or the rule may be changed in this case, Jesse, because it's just inconceivable to me that they can allow this to happen.
Would you be willing to go to court to challenge it?
I think I probably would. I mean, Pat Buchanan's right now in court. He's going to get nowhere probably, but the fact is that let him spend his money first. Let's see how he does. If he doesn't do it, we'll step in and maybe we can do something. But the fact is, it seems very, very unfair to me.
Would either of you guys get 15%?
Well, I think this guy would, and I think based on our polls, we would. Based on what we've done internally, we would. If people think that I'm running, we do great. A lot of people say, oh, he's maybe not going to run. He's just having lots of fun. That's not the case. If people think that we're running, seriously running, we do very well. I just think it's unfair, though, regardless of that, to have such a high standard, a high criteria for a party that's a legitimate party, that has a substantial amount of federal funding, that's recognized, and where at some point during this process, somebody's going to be in all 50 states. Very unfair.